Aita for helping my sister leave our parents' house and doing nothing for my much younger siblings. My parents had me, 19M, and my sister, 18F, when they were 20/21st, me, and 21/22, my sister. They never really parented us. Most times we were left home alone when we were way too young. We had to learn to fend for ourselves. We missed a lot of school and didn't always look taken care of either. But we didn't have extended family around us, and our parents never had friends at the house either, so we were pretty isolated and ignored. I was 8 when I started attending school regularly, and my sister was 7, and that was because our parents got in some trouble, and so they told us we were big enough to get ourselves up and to school every morning. It wasn't easy, and the two of us bonded over the unfairness. Then when I was 11 and my sister 10, our parents had another baby together. This was the start of them pushing out kids like crazy. They had 5 kids in 7 years, and my sister and I were forced to be responsible for them. Our parents were home more with those kids, but they did nothing. They were too busy making more kids to raise the ones they had. During mom's pregnancies we were also expected to wait on her, and that sucked. Our parents made life really difficult. If we tried to stop, I spoke to teachers and CPS, called a few times, but nothing was ever done to help us, so I left on my 18th birthday, slept rough for a few weeks, was able to get help at a shelter and got a job and found a place to rent. I kept in touch with my sister and we planned for her to come and live with me when she turned 18. She turned 18 in December and she moved straight in with me. I told her she should try to finish school since I didn't. There was no point. My grades sucked. I'm working to support us and she's got a part-time job now so she can help, and we're going to make it work together. Our parents tried to report my sister missing and created a huge fuss over her leaving. When we found out, she corrected it, but that gave our parents more current info on us. They found out where we live, at least the neighborhood, and I see them when I have to walk to work. They told me I should be ashamed for moving my sister out like I did, and they asked what about the younger kids and who's supposed to take care of them. I said they had them so they should take care of them, and they said I know they won't, and we left little ones with nobody. My mom's pregnant again and probably due any time now from looking at her, so there's even more kids than before. I know my parents won't take care of any of them. I know that I should probably step up more, but I never felt close to them. I took care of them because I had to parent out of force, but I never loved them or did it because I was willing, and I don't want to be responsible for them again. My sister feels the same, and she told me she called CPS and reported it, but that's all she's willing to do, and she's done with it because she wants to focus on the two of us. Aita for doing all this for her and not doing enough for them. Stories number 2. BFF died. Her ex flirted with me over news of her death. Wasn't even sure how to title this 100% rage rant. I had a friend since we were practically out of diapers. After 45 years of sisterhood, we had an argument and it couldn't be recovered. That's another male-centered story. Her ex-husband, they divorced 30 years ago, calls to tell she passed away. Of course I am devastated and still in mourning. I hadn't heard from him since their divorce in the 90s. 5 minutes into him telling me she died, this idiot goes into his disdain over his current wife, 3 of 10 years, who took in his affair baby when the affair partner mom abandoned the baby. You think that's it? No. He goes on to tell me how much he loved me over the BFF who just passed. He said he fantasized all these years about how it would have been if he had approached me instead of her in high school. By this time he's sounding like Charlie Brown's parents over the phone, wahawawa, because I'm trying to process too fucking much at once. Death, affair babies, unrequited feelings, the inappropriateness of his conversation. I kept trying to bring it around to how she died, what happened, her family, I need to call them. But there's more. He goes on about how he imagined it would be in bed, and all these intrusive thoughts he had throughout the years. Tried to hint that should I visit his town, wink wink. By this time, I had had enough and abruptly ended the call. Dude is in his mid-50s with no sense of appropriateness of a situation. Why bring all that shit up over his ex-wife's death? Shitting on their relationship and by extension hers and mine with his sociopathic bullshit. Who does that? What's wrong with these fucking men? Did he never give a shit about her? Wow, this is why I dissented them in my late 30s. There is no other species so about themselves than the human male. This was one of the most cold-hearted conversations I felt stuck in, and over a woman that just passed who held some of the warmest, wondrous, and joyous times of my life. Fuck that guy. Stories number 3. Christians responding to the Los Angeles wildfires shows just how terrible their cult is. I'm sure you're all aware of the recent fires that broke out in California, which are pretty much leveling Los Angeles and Hollywood as I type this. It's extremely tragic and scary for everyone involved, whether it's people living there, or family members with family living there. A lot of wildlife are dying, and possibly human fatalities, and this isn't mentioning the suffering that these fires are causing on people. While this is a tragic disaster that is seemingly impossible to stop at this time, Christians seem to think the complete opposite when it comes to these fires. Just scrolling through the comments of a video about these fires on websites like TikTok, you'll see many Christians using this disaster as a way to earn God points. Below are some examples of comments I've found. Hollywood is evil, God is doing the right, Hollywood is turning into their kingdom, Jesus is coming soon, he set that fire upon Hollywood, don't play about God, his wrath gonna come for Hollywood and its demonic stuff, Jesus is coming back, repent, all these years, and this the main spot that takes God as a joke, do not mock Jesus. There are many other comments I could put here, but that would take all day. I think these few comments I've selected are enough. As upsetting and aggravating it is to see these comments, I think it perfectly shows the pure hypocrisy that takes place in Christianity. These idiots are really showing just how hypocritical and awful they are. These Christians go around, telling people how their cult is the most loving, understanding, and just belief system in the entire world, yet when events like this happen, these same people say hurtful things without any regard to the lives that are being taken or suffering due to these fires. That's all I have on this. I'm sure many of you can agree with me on this, and I'm sure we can all see the hypocrisy that's being proven by these people. Stories number 4. Terrified about the state of the world, it's eating me up. Not sure where to post this, just need to get this out of my system. Tens of thousands of acres are ablaze, homes, wildlife. At least 5 people so far have been taken by the fires. The government as whole doesn't seem to care. Our president-elect is talking about invading Canada. And not just a one-off joke, actually talking about it, publicly. Working a full-time job for the state doesn't pay enough for me to live. There are currently more vacant houses than there are homeless people, yet greedy fucking scum-ass companies keep buying up land and building cookie-cutter houses starting at $500,000. Healthcare. Forget about it. I pay for healthcare and still avoid doctors at all costs because of deductibles and having to deal with insurance companies, even though there is absolutely something wrong with me health-wise. I can't handle it. How is this real? I feel fucking insane. My coworkers brought up the Canada thing to laugh at, and I said it's not fucking funny. None of this is fucking funny. I'm kind to others and vote strictly Democrat. I work a hard fucking job to better the environment, and yet it's never enough. I feel like the world is falling apart around me. And there is absolutely fucking nothing I can do about it but keep going to work to pay my fucking bills and stay afloat, while the wealthy have private chefs making them home-cooked meals while they shop and drive their fancy cars. The fact that homelessness and billionaires can exist not only within a country together but even within workplaces together boggles my mind. I feel like nobody fucking cares. I feel like it's not going to get better, and I'll just be screaming into the void, begging those in charge to please stop for a second and think. If they destroy the working class, they go down too, hopefully. Stories number 5. I've been paying a college student for sex. I'm in my early 30s, and in college many years ago, I used to be really active in a student group. We had an alumni event early last year and I met some of the students that are currently in it. I offered my contact information if anyone ever needed a mentor or needed help with anything. Long story short, one of the students reached out to me for advice on an internship they were applying to that I previously had. She ended up getting it and we spoke about it more over lunch. She mentioned the move to the internship would put her in debt for a while and jokingly said she wished she had a sugar daddy to help. I jokingly said I'd love to be her sugar daddy. We both laughed it off and I didn't think much of it. She sent me a very provocative photo a few days later and mentioned wanting me to be her sugar daddy. Turns out, she had a kink for older guys. Besides the joke, I never gave indication I'd be into any of this. In trying to gauge the seriousness of all this, we realized we had a mutual attraction to one another. She bluntly asked me for financial help and in return she was interested in being friends with benefits. I've been giving her money on a weekly basis and have been banging once a week. It has become some of the best sex I have ever had. She says she enjoys the consistency and financial help. Stories number 6. Aita for getting into a huge argument with my neighbor over his dog using my lawn as a toilet. So, I, 34F, have been living in my house for about 4 years now. It's a quiet suburban neighborhood with well-kept yards, kids riding bikes, and the occasional block party. Honestly, it's been great until my neighbor, John, 40SM, and his dog, Buddy, moved in last year. Now, don't get me wrong, I love dogs. I have a dog myself, a sweet golden retriever named Daisy, but John's dog, Buddy, has become the bane of my existence because John refuses to pick up after him every morning. Like clockwork, John takes Buddy on a walk, and every morning, Buddy makes a pit stop right on my front lawn to do his business, and guess what? John just leaves it there, acting like it's some kind of natural fertilizer or something. At first, I tried to be polite. I waved at him one day and said, "Hey John, would you mind picking up after Buddy when he goes on my lawn? I'd really appreciate it." He gave me this half-hearted smile and said something like, "Oh, yeah, sure," but nothing changed. So I escalated a bit. I put up a little sign on my lawn that said, "Please clean up after your dog." You'd think that'd be enough, right? Nope. Buddy's gifts kept appearing every morning. Finally, I'd had enough. A few days ago, I saw John out with Buddy, and I marched outside. I'll admit, I was already pretty heated. I told him in no uncertain terms that he needed to stop letting Buddy use my lawn as a bathroom and that if he couldn't clean up after his dog, he shouldn't own one. John got defensive. He said something about how everyone's grass is the same, and it's not a big deal, and then he accused me of being a bad neighbor for making a fuss over a little dog poop. I fired back, saying that it was about basic respect, and if he wanted Buddy to poop in someone's yard, he should let him do it in his own. Things got pretty loud, and I'm sure a few other neighbors heard us. John stormed off, dragging Buddy along, and now he's been giving me the cold shoulder. To make things worse, I've started to hear whispers from other neighbors about how I overreacted and should have just let it go. One neighbor even suggested that it's not worth ruining the peace over something so small. But I don't think it's small. It's disgusting, it's rude, and I shouldn't have to deal with it still. Now I'm wondering if I'm the for how I handled it. Should I have just kept quiet or tried another approach? So, Reddit, Aita. Stories number 7. Aita for not wanting to give my friend her key back. I became friends with a couple, F26/M31, when they moved to my city about 3 years ago. I met them together and am closer with the wife but also still friends with the husband. About a year ago, the wife moved to another city for her job while the husband stayed behind to finish his master's. I got a call from the wife in September. She was inconsolable and said that she had a brief affair with someone but called it off because she wanted to focus on her marriage. The AP did not take it well, found the husband and told him everything in painful detail with screenshots/photo evidence. The husband was obviously blindsided and devastated. They are still in 2 separate states and the husband has gone low to no contact with the wife, asking her for space. She has been incredibly emotional since this happened. I've been in contact with her multiple times a day, even just to check in and let her know she's loved and important, but she's understandably been a mess. I've seen the husband a few times. I let him know that the wife told me what happened and that I just wanted him to know that I'm here if he needs anything. My goal is to just be there for both of my friends and not get in the middle. To me it comes down to some bad decisions that were made that had really painful consequences. There's no villain in this story. People are not the sum of their mistakes. Fast forward to present day where the wife was served with divorce papers. She wants to talk to him in person but he doesn't. He agreed to FaceTime only if they do speak. She wants to fly here without telling him and show up on his doorstep to fight for the marriage. They have a door code to their apartment that they use every day. They also have a key which they gave me about a year ago when I was watching their pets. When I went to give it back to the husband, he said just to hang on to it. He let her know that he has changed the code to the door, so right now she has no physical way to get into the apartment if he's not home. She's also concerned that he won't let her in if he knows it's her, which I don't think would be the case, but who knows. She asked me to pick her up from the airport and give her the key so that she can get in. I said I'm really not comfortable with it because I don't want the husband to feel like I betrayed him or was part of some sort of ambush. She's also walking in at 10 p.m. when he is not expecting anybody. I'd be really spooked if it was me. He's former military, but I just think it's not great to surprise anyone that late. I know this sounds stupid, but I suggested that if she Ubers to the apartment and he won't let her in or isn't home, I can drive over. I'm only 15 minutes away, and give her the key then, but she said no, she is on the lease so she can still legally enter the apartment, so I've reluctantly agreed to give her the key up front. So AITA to him if I give her the key or AITA to her if I don't give it to her up front? Edit 1. I should have clarified that they were still together when they gave me the key, which is part of why I'm conflicted. She technically gave it to me with him there. She had already moved for her job when I went to give it back and he told me to just hang on to it. Edit 2. This is a difficult situation because her mental health has declined significantly since this all occurred. There have been episodes of self-harm and suicidal thoughts where she was actually making a plan and reached out to me. I was able to coordinate with one of her friends there and convinced her to admit herself to the hospital for a 48-hour hold. So her mental health has been incredibly fragile. That doesn't excuse the choices she's made in any way during those episodes. She asked me to reach out to her husband to tell him the state she was in and I told her no because I felt like it was manipulative and I also felt like whether he responded or not, it would only impact her negatively either way and she needed to work with her therapist to help her through this. The support I've given her has been solely regarding her mental health. I haven't engaged in any conversations with either of them about the other. She has mostly vented to me about her deep regret, remorse, guilt and lack of self-worth because of the choices she's made, and as her friend, I've really tried to just support her as a vulnerable human being by reminding her that we are not the sum of our mistakes, and while this is painful and has some deep consequences, she still has so much to live for. I say all this because I'm seeing a lot of comments saying that I inserted myself into the middle of this, but this all just happened today. She asked me for the key and I told her I wasn't comfortable with that for the reasons stated in my original post. She is obviously emotional and again, she is technically the one that gave me the key, which is why I reluctantly agreed, but then I came here because my conscience is telling me that's not the right decision, even though I feel like I'm trying to balance a sensitive situation which has been really intense. Edit 3. Wow. What a jolt this has been in a really short span of time. First, I do want to say that I absolutely think the choices she made were wrong, and so does she. She knows that she effed up and has been torturing herself over it in some really intense ways that I am absolutely not qualified to help her navigate, but have tried to be a supportive friend through it because of the immediacy and severity of the help she needed at the time. Thanks to everyone for the perspective. I think I have been so worried about her emotional state over the last few months that I've been too close to it to see what some of you are saying, and that she's being a bit manipulative with me, especially when I told her I wasn't comfortable giving her the key. I'm going to call her tomorrow and let her know that I'm not giving it to her. I really appreciate that. Snap out of it. Slap a lot of you provided. Update, Aita for not wanting to give my friend her key back. Update on the wife. I let her know this morning that I wouldn't be giving her the key as many of you predicted. She instantly responded with complete vitriol. No discussion, no, please reconsider, none of that, just straight to, I can't believe you right now, I can't rely on anyone, thanks a lot, fine, you will regret it. That last one was a bit unexpected. I probably would have been shocked if I hadn't read the feedback on this post beforehand, so I was honestly unfazed and just responded that I don't support what she's trying to do, and like a few people mentioned, if roles were reversed and the husband was asking me to do this, I would absolutely be saying the same thing, and that she needs to respect my decision because it wasn't going to change. Among other things, she told me I was ruining everything. I let her know that unfortunately she is the one that has ruined everything with the decisions she's made in the past, and that it's time for her to start taking accountability and stop looking for people to blame. I also told her that I would be giving the key back to the husband and letting him know what she was planning. She lost it, lots of swearing, lots of self-pity, threats of self-harm, and then said I wasn't a good friend to her. That's when I had enough. I told her I was done being a punching bag for her, and that I know I've been a good friend to her when no one else was supporting her and I saw her through some dark times. I said her selfishness had finally crossed a line with me. I ended it by saying that she's in a dangerous state of mind and that she should reach out to her therapist and share our conversation so she can give her an objective view of it. I let her know that she needed help that I can no longer give and that I was done. She sent me 2 apology texts about 5 minutes later, but I haven't responded and don't plan to. If she somehow shows up at my door, if she flies in tomorrow, I won't be answering. Update on the husband. I let him know everything this morning. We're good and we made plans to give him back the key. She's supposed to fly in tomorrow night and leave Saturday. He actually won't even be in town this weekend. Stories number 8. Aita for letting my twins call my boyfriend dad. I, 25F, and my boyfriend, 28M, have been together for 3 years and have been living together with my twins, 3M, for 2 years. Me and their father, 26M, have never been together, and he hadn't wanted to be a part of their life until they were a year old. We have a custody agreement that they go every other weekend with him on Saturday, with me dropping them off and picking them up, but last weekend my boyfriend had to pick them up because I had a work trip. For context, the twins don't know life without my boyfriend. We have been together since I found out I was pregnant, and he was there for all the ultrasounds and birth classes. He sat and read all the books with me and was there for the labor. He loves them like his own, and in my eyes they're as much his kids as mine. He was up all the late nights taking care of not only me but them too. Back to it, he was picking up the kids for me. This is not the first time, and they had called him daddy to get his attention while he was talking to my ex. He said that my ex had seemed to be okay with it and he left to take them home, but while I was at the airport my ex called me screaming, saying how undermining and disrespectful it was that the twins called him daddy while and they wouldn't speak at his house, which I had not known about, considering that the twins don't stop talking at my house until they fall asleep. But then he started complaining about custody, which was originally his idea because he was working a lot, and saying that it was my fault because my boyfriend is spending more time with them and that he doesn't have enough time to bond with them. He then started on how it was not right that the twins were so comfortable with my boyfriend but his fiancée couldn't hug the twins without bribing them with something. I ended up hanging up on him because my plane was boarding and he was just screaming at me. Later when I got home his fiancée started calling and texting me, which I ignored because she's been known to have a terrible attitude toward me even when I'm just picking up the twins. I talked with my boyfriend to see what we should do about the twins calling him daddy, and he said that it's up to me and he loves it but would understand if I told them to stop. But I don't know, I love that my twins call him dad. I feel like he's earned it, but I don't know if I'm being a dick because my ex is in their life and he is their father. Stories number 9. Aita for telling my roommate to stop cooking all the time. So I, 22F, live with my roommate Katie, 24F, and we've been roommates for like a year. Things were fine at first, but now I'm losing my mind because she's obsessed with cooking. At first it was kinda cool because she would make these fancy meals and sometimes offer me some, but now she's like doing it all the time and it's driving me nuts. She cooks literally every day, sometimes twice a day, and it's never simple stuff. It's always these big fancy recipes that use like every pot and pan we own. The kitchen is always a disaster and she doesn't even clean up after herself right away. Like sometimes I'll go to bed and the next morning there's still dirty dishes and random food everywhere. Also, She started making weird stuff like fish stock and some kind of fermented stuff, and it makes the whole apartment stink. The fridge is also a huge issue. She's completely taken over all the space with her leftovers and jars of sauces and random ingredients. I can barely fit my milk and eggs in there. Last week I came home starving after work and she was making this huge meal, and she told me I had to wait like 2 hours to use the stove because she needed it for her process or whatever. I ended up eating cereal. So I told her she needs to chill and stop hogging the kitchen all the time and at least clean up after herself. She got super mad and said I'm unsupportive of her passion and I'm being selfish. She was like, I don't complain when you watch TV all the time, so why are you complaining about this? Which makes no sense because her cooking affects me directly. Now she's being all passive aggressive, like saying, oh, I'll just eat frozen meals from now on since I'm such a problem, and now I feel kinda bad, but also like, I pay rent too and should be able to use my own kitchen. Aita for saying something. Or should I just let her do her thing because it's her hobby? Stories number 10. The issue with golden child narratives in snark and rage bait posts. So Sherry Franks, oldest daughter of now convicted child abuser and former Mormon mommy vlogger, Ruby Frank of 8 Passengers, Infamy, memoir came out recently and I spent yesterday devouring it. It's a very gripping expose into the intersection of being raised by a narcissist, being raised in a high-control religious environment, and being exploited online from a young age, and it really had me thinking about this sub and the conversation surrounding golden child narratives in online content. Before Ruby Frank was formally exposed as a child abuser and arrested for her crimes, a lot of people speculated on the controversial and unconventional child-rearing tactics that she showcased on her YouTube videos. People in online forums and communities would discuss the problematic content being shared by Ruby. Sherry, the oldest daughter, was branded as the golden child. Sherry was kind-hearted, studious, responsible, and quiet. She would do as she was told by her parents, and she took an active role in taking care of her younger siblings. As such, the online communities would tear her to shreds for this, calling her, suck up, kiss up, mini Ruby, and speculating on how much of a nightmare she must be to her younger siblings behind the scenes. In her memoir, Sherry reveals that not only did these online comments have a negative effect on her mental health, but that her people-pleasing behaviors were born of self-preservation due to Ruby's emotional abuse. And in many cases was her attempt at shielding her younger siblings from the abuse as well. Being the golden child did not save Sherry from later being disowned by her mother and cut off from her father and younger siblings when she questioned the dangerous pipeline of extremist belief that Ruby was falling down. She effectively spent a horrifying year or so of her life isolated from her entire immediate family, unable to check on her siblings or verify that they were safe or even alive up until Ruby was arrested. At no point did being the golden child or the good girl spare her the trauma of being raised by a true narcissistic fanatical abuser. It really had me reflecting on the problematic nature of these golden child narratives and just how immature and detached from reality they are. The hypothetical golden child who exists in Aita and the real-life golden child who is growing up in the same traumatizing and abusive environment as the black sheep could not be more different. Abuse is abuse. Growing up in an abusive home is traumatizing for everyone in that home. Being the golden child for a time does not spare anyone. I hope that old, tired, pop family psychology dichotomy is retired soon. Stories number 11. Transport at weddings. Great, but make sure it can actually get people home. The year after COVID was over, we went to Slovakia for a uni friend's wedding. It was okay, lots of food and drink but not much else, no music etc. So after a good few hours we and a lot of other guests decided it was okay to leave around 10 p.m, late enough to be respectful. We went to get a cab and joined a pretty long queue, waited patiently for about 20 minutes. Then I went to see what was going on as we were next to a station with a cab rank. Turns out the bride and groom very kindly had paid for transport back to the hotel we were all staying at, but it was just one cab doing round trips for 100 plus guests. We would have waited for hours. The bride was at the front of the queue arranging it all. For some weird reason, instead of enjoying her wedding, we gave her a hug and said not to worry about us and we would jump in one of the station taxis while she lost her S**T. Apparently that was so rude. They had spent money on transport for guests and expected us to use it. By then I was tired and over it, so we very politely explained it's a long queue and we're really happy to just sort out our own transport. She ended up screaming at us as we walked off, well, you have to pay for it. Obviously, that's exactly what we expects to do, and it's Slovakia. The cab cost £240 between 4 of us. We gave the driver a good tip and he left happy and I was happy to sink into bed. We heard the next day a few guests did the same as us, but a lot of people come home around 2 a.m. The bride was excitedly telling everyone her crazy party went on into the early hours, but we're all pretty sure it was just the cab queue. Stories number 12. Aita for not letting a family use my camping trailer during the evacuation for Hurricane Milton. I live in Florida, and a couple of months ago much of the state was under a mandatory evacuation due to an approaching hurricane, which was projected to be a Category 5, and basically wiped Florida off the map. A little backstory, when I moved to Florida one of the first things I did was plan for evacuations. I had mapped out different routes based on different predictions for hurricane paths and made a list of items to take with me, but my primary concern was for my pets. I have a dog and 2 cats, and leaving them behind is not an option. After discussion with neighbors, I came to the conclusion that shelters and hotels were iffy options, so I decided to buy a lightweight teardrop travel camper that could be pulled by my vehicle. It's small, sleeps 1 or 2, has a tiny kitchenette, 2-burner stove, sink, and small refrigerator, and a bathroom with a toilet and handheld shower. When the order to evacuate was issued, I loaded the car and trailer with supplies, pets, important papers, and my husband's ashes and headed north on I-95 with approximately 1 million of my neighbors. When I got to North Florida/Southern Georgia, I found that all the campgrounds on my list were already full, so I ended up at a rest stop off the interstate. I got the kitties comfortable in the trailer and took the dog on the designated dog walking path. When I came back, I discovered a large pickup truck parked next to me with a minivan behind it. I would later learn it was a mother and father with 4 kids ranging in age from about a year to around 10. During the course of casual conversation, they explained they hadn't been able to get a hotel room, and were resigned to spending the night in their vehicles. I did feel bad for them, so I did share some food. Food was available to them. There was a grocery store and several restaurants just down the road, and told Mom I would be happy to heat up the baby's bottle. So it's night, and I'm prepping the trailer for sleeping, and there's a knock at the door. Mom, Dad, and kids are there, and Dad says to me, "We were hoping you would do the right thing and offer your trailer for us during the night, but since you didn't, we are asking that you sleep in your car and let us use the trailer." To say I was gobsmacked is an understatement. It took me a few moments to get my thoughts together, and I then explained it only slept 1 or 2, not 6, and they said, "Oh, we will manage," and I responded, "Not in my trailer, you won't." And the conversation went downhill from there. I was called selfish, a child-hating monster, and a lot of 4-letter words. We attracted a small crowd of interested onlookers, and long story short, I moved on, went up the interstate until I found a place to set up where I had an uneventful night. I obviously don't think I was wrong, but in telling the story to family during the holidays, a few seem to think that maybe I should have let the kids sleep in the camper, but they also agree the parents were entitled. So Reddit, am I the AH? Some additional info: I'm 63, the parents were in their 30s, I'm guessing. They also expected my large dog to sleep in the car, and take my cats to the car as well, which would have meant putting them into their cat carriers. Stories number 13. Grocery store dancing. Delirious and sick, my husband and I had to pick up medication and groceries from our local store. We finally get to checkout and the line is taking a bit longer than expected. The person in front of us takes time scanning coupons. I am feeling more and more loopy. They start bagging their groceries and the cashier realizes bagging them will take a while, so she starts assisting the customer. Then suddenly, "Hit Me With Your Best Shot" starts playing on the radio. It feels louder than normal, or maybe that's the headache coming back. Something primal hits within me. I grab the sides of our cart, start swaying my hips to the beat. "Hit me with your best shot." Dun dun dun. I see a smile crack on my husband's face. This emboldens me. I sway more dramatically. "Why don't you hit me with your best shot?" I am in a world of silliness and glee. Dun dun dun. I feel the cashier's gaze and it comes back to me, the congestion and headache. I stare at the cashier in embarrassment, realizing my movements weren't subtle at all. I start to say something when suddenly she begins to dance too. "Why don't you hit me with your best shot?" We all share a chuckle before she starts scanning our groceries. Stories number 14. Kicking out partner who won't do any housework. This is my first post on 2 chromosomes, but I am so irate I wanted to vent. Thank you for listening. I am in my 40s and recently diagnosed with breast cancer. In light of that, my on-again, off-again boyfriend of a year offered to come stay with me and help while I went through treatment. Unfortunately, he won't do any housework at all. He's a musician and said he needs to spend time on his music. He leaves dishes all over the living room and half-empty coffee cups on the bed stand. He's creating more work for me at this point, even though he was supportive and coming with me to appointments initially. Today, he called me a bitch for asking him repeatedly to take the trash out that I had collected by the door, and I told him he has 24 hours to get out. Am I a jerk? Are there any men out there who are just normal and share housework? He said that because he's a man he shouldn't have to do it. I think I'd rather fight cancer by myself at this point. Stories number 15. Aita for taking back the spare key after my sister let her boyfriend in without asking. Here's the situation. I, 30F, recently moved into a new place and, being the nice sister that I am, I gave my sister Maya, 26F, a spare key in case of an emergency, you know, for situations like needing to get in for a repair person or something like that. Fast forward to last week when I was out of town for a few days, and I found out from my roommate that Maya had used the key to let her boyfriend in while I wasn't home. Apparently, she didn't ask me about it first. She just showed up with him and let him hang out at my place, saying it was convenient because she was nearby. I was pretty upset when I found out. I mean, we have a close relationship, but using the key without asking first feels like a big breach of trust. One didn't want her assuming she had free reign over my home when I'm not around, so I told her I was taking the key back, and honestly, I didn't think it'd be that big of a deal, but now she's furious with me. She says I'm being unreasonable and controlling, and that I should have been chill about it because it was just her boyfriend coming over. But to me, it's not just about her boyfriend coming over, it's about her not respecting boundaries and the trust one placed in her by giving her the key. I don't know, am I overreacting here? Should I have just let it slide? TLDR, I gave my sister a spare key to my house for emergencies, but she used it to let her boyfriend in while I was away without asking. I took the key back, and now she's upset with me AITA for doing that. Stories number 16. 40M My 35F wife hates sex, doesn't work, says I'm a lazy person who ruined her life. I'm a 40-year-old man, and my wife is 35. We've been married for 9 years and together for 16. Today, out of the blue, she told me she feels nothing from sex with me and doesn't want to have sex anymore. She also said she hates spending time with me and feels frustrated that I'm home all the time. I work from home because of a serious injury I sustained last year in a car accident, an accident that happened while she was driving. She doesn't work and spends most of her time in her room. She's highly educated, but I've supported her financially since she was 19. I paid for around 10 years of her education. She has a PhD, and afterward, she decided not to work. She's antisocial, has no friends, and I've come to realize she's likely been depressed for a long time, though I didn't fully recognize it until now. I love her and want to help, but I'm also struggling. I have chronic pain from the accident, along with other medical issues, and my patience and tolerance are wearing thin. She rarely helps around the house. We have a cleaning lady, but she insists I should give her credit for cleaning the house because she changes the sheets occasionally. She also says I should be grateful because she makes me breakfast. I feel stuck. She has refused therapy and psychiatry, claiming medication doesn't work, and I feel like I've tried everything to improve our relationship. I've even consulted a divorce lawyer, but I'm conflicted and unsure of what to do. Is divorce the only option left? Are there any other ways to salvage this relationship, or is it time to move on? P.S. I also want to focus on my brother. He attempted suicide this year and was in a coma for 6 months. I want him to move in with me so I can take care of him. It's not possible with her because she says I constantly put my family ahead of her throughout the years. Stories number 17. Oh no. You'll never have kids. I got an ultrasound for my painful periods, despite me taking hormonal birth control, which has been helping, and my gyno said I may have adenomyosis. I told my mom how if I do have that condition, the only cure per se is a hysterectomy. I could be wrong. Let me know if there are other options. I'm only 24, so I'm pretty young, although I wanted to get one in my 30s or 40s. Here she goes saying, oh no, you don't want that right now. You'll never be able to have kids. Well, I already decided that if I do decide to have kids, I'd adopt anyways. You never know, you might change your mind. Oh brother, this guy stinks. Firstly, if this is going to save me from no longer having painful periods, then it's worth it. Secondly, you'd really want your daughter in pain for the next 5 to 10 years for maybe I'll have kids. Dude, no. Lastly, I do not want to go through pregnancy and childbirth. Nope, doesn't seem worth it to go through hell for 9 months, hours of labor, contractions, getting stuck with a long-ass epidural needle, etc. Never thought my mom would be one of those people to be like, you might change your mind blah blah. Edit, thank y'all for all the suggestions. Also, sorry for all the women here who dealt with shitty gynos and doctors who wouldn't listen to you. Lastly, some of y'all are hilarious in the comments. Stories number 18. I'm 26 working at Target. I hate myself and I'm a loser. I'm 26, I'm in school finishing my degree for electrical engineering. I had to break due to having to take care of my mom because she was in a car accident that made her disabled. My dad is a druggie, so he's out of the picture. I work Thursday through Sunday nights, so my social life is non-existent. I have 2 friends from high school that invited me to their weddings. One couple just bought a house. I can't even afford an apartment. In terms of dating, it just hasn't worked out. I haven't had sex since I was 18. I'm very skinny, bald, and dark skin. I started balding when I was 23. That's not really a thing. Women are attracted to my confidence from social life. Career life and dating life is pretty much shot. I enjoy engineering, but it just seems like it may or may not help my career life or dating advice. I'm only doing it because I'm on a scholarship. Stories number 19. 28-year-old job applicant demanded a salary of $12,000 a month because he deserves it. I work at a small company of 40 people. Most of the time my boss does the interviews, but when he's on vacation I do them. Before he left, he scheduled an interview with this one guy to give him a look. I live in a mid-level cost area state, by the way. Edit, for the people claiming that $12,000 a month isn't that much, perhaps not in Cali, but I'm in a mid-level state area, Michigan. Well, according to his CV and what he said during his interview, this guy started working at age 19 at some tourist trap as a tour guide. For some reason he was made the chief technician a few months after starting there. By this time he was still studying electrical engineering. He completed his bachelor's by age 23 and never did his master's. The establishment he worked at survived COVID, but crashed last year. Since mid-2024 this guy has been looking for a job. He revealed why. When I asked him for his salary wishes he said something like, I was the chief technician since I was 19 before I even completed my studies, very strange, which indicates there was nepotism involved or something other shady. In my previous job and towards my end there I earned 12,000/month. It continued basically with, because I am so good and so great ya data I want to earn the same money here because I deserve it. Naturally boss told me to turn him down after getting this information. The arrogance, delusion and entitlement of this guy were absolutely astounding. This guy for some reason managed to land an above-level salary and position at age 19, and now he thinks he deserves the same pay at every new job he applies to. He would be lucky if someone paid him half of that sum. That's probably the reason why he is searching for a job since half a year, because no one will pay him this amount of money ever again if his claim is true anyways. Edit. It's a private company where my boss pretty much decides everything. Unfortunately, I have no say in these matters. Average salary where I live is around 6,000 month though. For the people that claim that the company I work at wants to screw workers, it's not the best company. But above average I would give it a 7/10 in terms of pay, fairness, work-life balance. Stories number 20. Aita for refusing to volunteer to run an event I planned after my contract ends. I, 28F, currently work for a large organization. It's my first job out of college, and landing this position was a big deal to me. I'm on a 2-year contract and my employment is scheduled to end during the week of a major conference and the day before a high-profile event, the event that I helped organize. For context, this conference is massive with thousands of participants including some known figures. During my time here, I've worked on a 3-person team focused on a major project. The 2 other members of my team, project manager and second in command, were scheduled to leave in the summer. This meant I'd be the only remaining member of the original team to help organize the event that takes place during the conference. Knowing this, I anticipated issues, especially since their replacements would need time to get up to speed, and there could be technical problems with such a large event. So, a few months prior, I met with the people who fund my position and asked if they would consider granting me a 1-month extension so I could be around for the event. They told me although nothing was guaranteed, given the circumstances, a contract extension was likely if we applied. I subsequently discussed this with my supervisor. She politely and honestly responded that a 1-month contract extension was not feasible. I understood the position she was in, so I took that as a clear indication that no extension would be pursued, and I accepted that my last day would be during the week of the conference. Fast forward to this week. The new project manager asked if I could help with the event. Even though it takes place the day after my contract ends, the team didn't have a say on the day the event would take place. It's just one day, but here's the issue. One of the new team members is on leave until 2 days before the event, and another is sick with an uncertain return date. Even if both are present, they haven't had enough time to get fully accustomed to running such a large meeting, and there are bound to be logistical challenges. The project manager said she spoke to our supervisor about a 1-day extension for me, but the supervisor said that I could volunteer if I wanted to help. The project manager has been really kind throughout my time here, so I feel bad for the situation she's in, but I'm frustrated. I saw this problem coming months ago and tried to address it, but my request was essentially dismissed even after I was told that funding for a contract extension would be likely. Now, I'm being asked to step in without compensation. I'm not going to work for free, and I feel like it's unfair to be put in this position when I already raised concerns and offered a solution months ago. At the same time, I understand that my supervisor's workload was substantial when I asked for an extension. Aita for not volunteering my time to help with the event. Full disclosure, this is my original post that was removed from the other Aita subreddit. Stories number 21. AIO, my BF thinks this is not cheating. My boyfriend had texted me randomly insisting I call him immediately. Just some background information. He was away on vacation with family, to an island he vacationed every winter. Since he was a kid he grew familiar with the regular vacationers and locals and had accumulated a pretty large friend group. When I called him, he seemed to be freaking out with a reassuring tone. I ask if he is okay and he follows with an almost out-of-breath response, telling me that he was threatened by someone and warned me that it could possibly involve me. Not knowing how to respond, I ask who by and he responds, a woman. My mind immediately resorts to cheating. I wasn't home at the time and he said he needed more time to explain, so I hung up and called him back immediately. Once I got home he prefaced with some background on this woman's family, saying they were regular vacationers on the island around this time. Saying that they were incredibly wealthy, he continued by stating that they were crazy, all of them did drugs. They have 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter, which I later found out to be a lie. They have 2 daughters and a son. The daughter was the closest to our age, he claimed. In which he grew closest to her. I had no idea where he was going with this, but he continued to say that he spoke to her every day, and with each day, He realized more and more how psychotic she was. I sat there with a blank expression on my face but could hear my heart beating faster. He added that she ended up finding out that he has a girlfriend, saying that he knows he fucked up and that she threatened him to message me claiming that he cheated. I asked him how she found out and he stated that he didn't know, which proved to me that he hadn't told anyone he knows out there about me. He continued to bash her and her family, trying covering his ass and make what he did smaller. I asked him flat out how far it went and he said that he didn't make out or have sex with her, but simply heavily flirted, which in my eyes, and I'm sure many others, is considered cheating. I was at a loss for words. My heart had plummeted in my stomach. My hands were shaking. I had to end the call and told him I was leaving and he tried to brush everything over with, "I love you," which obviously does not resolve anything, so I hung up on him immediately after he rushed to texting me, claiming that he fucked up the call and that he wasn't being his true self, adding that he never had any interest in this person and was stringing them along as manipulation, which disgusts me to read back regardless if what he said was true about him and this girl only flirting and it not going any further. I still consider that cheating. I ended up receiving a message from her in which she provided me photo evidence of their relationship. The timeline happened to be throughout the entirety of my relationship. She claimed that they had met the winter before I met him, and although they were never officially together, they had hooked up and he even sent her flowers on her birthday, which also happened to be just 20 days after mine, where he also sent me flowers. I ended up blocking him everywhere and he ended up messaging my friends begging for me to hear him out. Once more, he claims that I am making a mistake by not letting him show me his side and is begging for me to give him a chance, adding that he didn't and would never cheat on me. The messages went on to get more and more manipulative, which has, in a way, persuaded me to respond, but I still haven't. I've been trying to convince myself that silence is more powerful than any response and that he doesn't deserve to explain. Stories number 22. Aita for going off on my sister's boyfriend and leaving them stranded. My 23M, first two boyfriends at 15 and then at 17 were abusive assholes. One was 4 years older than me and the other kept me off my bipolar meds, though anytime I've confided in anyone or talked about it I always get weird looks or comments because I'm not a stereotypical victim. I'm not a girl or some scrawny twink. I was 6 feet at 14 and a football player. I've always gotten weird looks or comments like how I let it happen or why didn't I stop it or stand up for myself. Even my first psychiatrist made really ignorant comments. My older sister, Tara, 25F, started dating this guy, Tyler, 27M, a few months ago, and I guess she told him about me because at dinner with our folks yesterday he kept giving me weird looks. Him, and my sister went for drinks. We got to talking and he just blurts out asking did I really let a guy do that to me. I was taken aback and was like, what? He's obviously pretty drunk, so I was gonna let it go, but he kept on asking me why I didn't defend myself from my boyfriends at my size. I just started screaming at him in the bar and told him to go FCK himself and that he was an ignorant POS and left them at the bar. I was the designated driver, so I'd only been nursing on 1 beer this morning. My sister was pissed and tells me I overreacted and that he shouldn't have said that, but I've heard stuff like that before and I shouldn't have stranded them and forced them to get an Uber. Aita. Stories number 23. Aita for telling my friend how I feel about her pregnancy plans. I, F, 38. Have been friends with Jill since high school. After graduation, she met her now ex-husband and moved across the country. Even though we didn't live near each other, we stayed in touch. When I got married years later, she was my maid of honor. Jill left her husband when their third kid was still a toddler. They had moved back to our city a year before that. She said her husband was a great guy but that she didn't find him attractive anymore. They co-parent now, and he's still super supportive of her. 2 years after they split, she met Ed, a child-free guy 2 years older than her. She got pregnant on their first date and tried to make it work for 2 years but eventually left him too. Ed's a good guy, though. He even includes her older kids when he takes her youngest out. Now she's dating Dave, a guy we went to high school with. He had a crush on her back then, and they reconnected recently. He met her kids after 4 months, and things seemed to be going well. When she came over the other day, she mentioned that Dave wants a kid of his own. Then she said, I thought I was done having kids, but I'm thinking of pulling the goalie. I was shocked and said, you're kidding, right? You literally told me it was a mistake when you planned a surprise pregnancy with Ed. Why are you doing this again? If he wants kids, maybe it's a sign you shouldn't be with him. You don't need to have a baby just to hold on to him. She got mad and said, this time, I have my older kids, 14 and 15, to help out. It's like having 2 live-in helpers. Soon they'll have their driver's licenses and can take the younger ones to their activities while Dave and I enjoy date nights. Then she said, not everyone is lucky enough to meet the love of their life and live happily ever after. Get off your high horse. She left in tears. Later, my husband told me I should have kept my opinion to myself. He said, you can't change her mind, just be there for her when she needs you. Should I have just shut up? She hasn't been replying to any of my messages. Stories number 24. I, 33F, changed my mind about abortion during a pregnancy scare, and now my partner, 31M, does not trust me anymore. How do we move on from this? Me, 33F, and my partner, 31M, have been a couple for almost 5 years. I recently got pregnant with an IUD in place. it was positioned correctly and still good to go for another year. After I knew for sure that I was pregnant, I informed my partner about it. He was just as confused and anxious about it as me, and immediately suggested an abortion. In the beginning of our relationship, we talked about contraception, whether we wanted children, and possible abortion if contraception failed. We both do not want children, and I told him that I would be open for an abortion. However, I said that I could not promise I would be able to go through with it emotionally once it happens. After days of worrying and being scared, I realized that I would not be able to go through an abortion if the pregnancy was viable. He was confused and a bit angry. He said he does not want a child forced on him. I said that there is never a 100% certainty of that, since even an abortion could fail or not be possible anymore depending on when you find out about the pregnancy. I also told him that I did not plan on feeling this way, but that I simply could not do it anymore. The pregnancy did not grow as expected, and first my doctor thought it could be an ectopic pregnancy, but now I ended up having a miscarriage at week 6. My partner is very relieved now, but the discussion has left a rift in our relationship. I am not sure I can trust him anymore to be there for me if something goes wrong again, and he does not trust me anymore, since I changed my opinion so drastically. He also said that if I cannot go through an abortion emotionally once I am pregnant, we simply need to decide in the future before it happens, as if I could simply stop my emotions because I decided so beforehand. I also feel very alone in my sadness right now, as I am still going through the miscarriage. He does not really understand the pressure and feelings I am going through, from confusion to hurt, sadness, and grief, but also relief, and on top of all this the physical strain it has on my body. How can we move on from this? I still do not want children, but I would not be able to have an abortion if contraception failed again. Is there even a way forward after such a significant change? P.S. Sorry for my English, I am not a native speaker in my country. Abortions are legal until week 12 after an in-depth counseling session. TLDR, I had a pregnancy scare and realized I would not be able to go through an abortion, even though me and my partner had kind of agreed to it. I lost the child now, but how do we move on from this? Stories number 25. Aita for suggesting if my brother cannot contribute financially to our mother's care, least they can do is contribute their time. Hey, going through a situation at the moment and seeking some perspective. I would like to prefix this with I am not seeking advice or criticism for how I wish to care for my mother or how they should have done better to save for retirement. I am not going to go into detail, but please understand not every family is always capable of saving properly for retirement. Thank you for understanding. As for the situation I wish to seek judgment and perspective for the last 4 years I have been supplementing my mother's care. She is 73 and has dementia. She is on Medicaid and does get some home care services. What Medicaid does not cover I cover myself, so currently she does have 24/7 care. This has worked out for around 4 years now, but I was recently offered a life-altering opportunity and I am strongly considering on taking it. Our mother does live with me and my brother lives in the same state. I spoke with my brother and asked, since I know he cannot contribute financially, could he contribute his time. I found a wonderful higher-end memory care facility located near the apartment we lived in together, my mom and I, trying to keep her near what she remembers and stuff. I just asked if he would be willing to maybe have lunch with mom and check in on her. The memory care is located in Manhattan and my brother lives on Staten Island. My brother told me does not think he can visit often enough for it to be meaningful. I asked if our SAL could do it when the kids are in school. I offered to cover gas and Easy Pass. He told me now and that I am an asshole for pushing the issue. I asked how am I being an asshole trying to keep mom comfortable. He asked why don't I take her with me. I told him how do you expect our mom to handle a flight, let alone move from New York to Europe. That is when he told me I took on this role of taking care of our mom, so I have to figure it out. I mean, I know my brother has beef with me because I am part of the reason my parents could not save. We had to sell our house and move 3 times because of issues I caused in school. I tried to explain do it for our mom, not me. Any questions I will do my best to answer. Update. Thank you for all the replies and suggestions. I did try to answer as many questions as I could or felt comfortable with answering. I wish clarify our family is fairly intertwined. We have dinner twice a month. Every holiday and birthday is celebrated together. My SAL and I do the planning and organizing. We go on vacations together. We took a road trip to FL just to go to Disney since flying is rough for our mom. We take weekends trips or outings. Often my SAL takes our mom to do her nails and hair when I cannot. This is why I was taken aback when he said no and did not give a reason, cause we already do so much. I also know my brother dislikes planning anything. That is why I did the best I could to cover all the bases around our mother care. I hired a care manager to handle appointments, renewals, coordinating care if I am not available, or if there is an emergency they will be my boots on the ground. I did try to find placement on Staten Island, but the options left much to be desired. I found one in the city and that is why I offered to cover the Easy Pass and gas. I was trying to make it as easy as possible, but I forgot one thing. With the help of my SIL we did all the planning. Nothing would happen without us. Now if I leave that all falls calls on my SIL she also loses her extra support since if I was available I would pick the kids up and stuff and we would hang out with mom if she had something else to take care of. I acknowledge my brother's job is demanding and did not think of all the logistics properly still thinking about it but I properly will turn down said opportunity to keep the status quo. Me leaving does not just impact my mom, it would impact everyone I know. My niece and nephew would miss mom greatly. I mean when we went to see Mufasa they were fighting to sit next to her because my mom needs to sit on the corner near aisle. I still have a week to sign the contract. But yeah, opportunities come and go but time with family is limited. Stories number 26. Aita for kicking out my partner's dad and family from my daughter's birthday party. I kicked them out because they refused to take off their shoes as it's a celebration at our house. For backstory, it was my daughter's first birthday. My partner is white and I am Asian. It has been the norm in our household to keep shoes off when we're at home and we also wear indoor footwear / slippers. I have always kept spa slippers for guests in variety of sizes in case some are not comfortable in going barefoot. I have always kept my house clean and have always maintained outdoor shoes / footwear off when inside our house. Not only does it makes cleaning floors easy, the thought of carrying germs inside is gross and scary to me. It's also a cultural norm for us as well to keep shoes off as a sign of respect to the owners of the house. Now my daughter's birthday has come, the first few guests have arrived and has taken cue that shoes should be off and I've offered spa slippers and some were happy to wear them and some just went barefoot inside. Now my partner's dad and his fiancée arrived along with their children. His parents are divorced, and they went straight in with their filthy shoes on, like really gross looking shoes that were not clean looking and you can see the dirt sticking to my tiles. I told my partner to tell them to take off shoes please because the other guests were happy to comply and thought they would do the same. Well, they didn't do that and just kept walking around inside with the shoes on and stepping on the rugs and mats with it. I politely asked again, but his dad grunted and said, "Our shoes are clean. We always wash them weekly." I pointed out the dirt on the floor and he said it's the dirt from when they walk on our front yard, so it's mainly part of our house. I explained again that kids and most especially his grandchild crawls around our floor and since it's her birthday to just take their shoes off the mat where she crawls. This time he seems offended and started with why I am making such a big deal out of wearing shoes inside when it's a party anyway and I'm ruining such an important day because I could not bend a little rule for one day and it's white people culture to not take their shoes off anyway. That's when I lost it and said they can get out of my house if they can't do a simple request, and they left and my partner said I should have just let it go since they traveled quite far to come for our daughter's birthday and I'm an asshole for not being considerate for only one day. So Aita. Stories number 27. Aita for not feeding my crying newborn immediately after she wakes up. Husband believes so. Advice needed. My husband and I haven't been married for long, and we recently welcomed a newborn into our lives. Oftentimes we're at completely opposite ends with decisions, so this is one of them. We're yet to find a counselor, and need a second opinion please. As typical with newborns, they don't sleep for long and wake up at midnight, usually with cries. This was one of those nights. Our baby woke up crying, but there's a bit of a difference in how my husband and I handle it. He's often put off by her crying and wants to solve the problem right away to avoid the noise or any potential embarrassment. Sometimes he'd ask, "How are we going to go to this place or this place with a crying baby?" I don't care, newborns cry, and that's just part of life. Hubby doesn't like being the center of attention, but when you have a child, attention is inevitable. Back to the situation, when our baby wakes up crying, my usual approach is to comfort her briefly, change her nappy, and then check if she's hungry, which she usually is. The conflict arises when it comes to the order in which hubby and I handle things. I prefer to let her cry for a few minutes while I change her nappy first, and then feed and soothe her. My husband disagrees with this approach. He said it's disturbing for a baby to cry consistently, and thinks I should comfort her right away, feed her if she's hungry, and then change her nappy afterward. The reason I prefer my method is that if I feed her first, she'll get sleepy, then she'll wake up for the nappy change and that means another holding, comforting for longer, staying up longer. Oftentimes she still gets hiccups, acid reflux, or gagging. By laying her down after a feed, I'd rather avoid all that fuss and put up with constant crying for 5 to 10 minutes for a nappy change. Hubby doesn't. I'm not sure if ITA because of this. Stories number 28. I think my fiancé has been having an affair with my best mate. I'm a 29 male. My ex-fiancé, female 25, has said she was done with us, so I moved into my mate's Tom's house a week ago, 300 kilometers away, and the day after I left has had my best mate Dylan over every night and switched the cameras off to sneak him and then turn them back on. I found out when I went back last Wednesday to pick up some more stuff. I went for a walk to see a couple mates before I went back to Townsville to Tom's house, and my other mate Matthew, who I went to see before I left, asked me if I sold my car. I told him I had moved to Townsville. I'm a security guard, so he asked me if I'd been working back where she is still living because there has been a security car parked there all Night every night for the last week. When I confronted her about it, she told me she has been turning off the cameras when Dylan comes over, but flat out denying anything is going on. She's never lied like this to me before. We've been together 7 years and had a beautiful life together with our 5-year-old son. I've known Dylan just over a year now, and he's completely ghosted me after my ex-fiancée had a disagreement on Christmas. Then he's back the day I leave. I'd say this has been going on for a while if it is happening, but she swears it's just as friends. She hasn't been herself since she seen her dying grandma nearly 4 weeks ago. Her cycle is messed up, getting her period every 2 weeks, but I just don't know what to believe anymore. We had such a beautiful life together and loved each other more than I thought was possible. Stories number 29. Aita for ended a relationship because of incompatibility. I, 23F, have made it very clear I have no interest in ever having children. It's never been something I wanted, and it's something I make a point in bringing up in the talking stage of the potential relationships. My now ex, 25M, at first was on board with never having children and saying he was happy being the fun uncle. By this point, we'd been together a year. Well, recently his sister, 30, gave birth to her first daughter after having 3 boys. My ex, Jack, was instantly obsessed with his newborn niece. He's been going over daily to help his sister and watch his nephews while his BAL returned to work. Well, after his first niece was born, he's been talking about how much he'd really enjoy having a little girl of his own and how much he'd enjoy being a dad. I reminded him that I really did not want children, but if he did, I understood and wouldn't stand in his way of finding a woman he could have a family with. He said he knew, but maybe I would change my mind after spending time with the new baby. This isn't something I've ever done, as I believe new parents should have the right to decide when / who was around their newborn, and his sister had always respected I didn't like children and had never asked me to babysit her newborn. I did help in other ways like cleaning the house, cooking meals, laundry, etc., just not babysitting. I very reluctantly agreed, and his sister even asked me several times if I was sure I was comfortable. My boyfriend insisted everything would be fine, so I told her I'd be okay. Well, I wasn't. I couldn't take the crying. It was like nails on a chalkboard for me. I barely lasted 10 minutes before I handed the baby to her mother and apologized before I left. My boyfriend was very upset, saying I barely tried to take care of the baby. I reminded him that I didn't like kids and this was one of the reasons I didn't want them. His sister later texted me saying she was sorry she didn't insist on her brother leaving me out of this, and I told her it wasn't her fault. Finally, I told my boyfriend we needed to have a serious conversation about if we were even compatible anymore. He agreed to the conversation. I asked him if he wanted kids now, and he said yes right away, saying he wanted a little girl of his own and how great it would be if we were to start a family. I was a little upset when I heard this, but I remained calm. I told him that I understood he wanted a family, but I still very much did not. I told him that I loved him and thanked him for a great year. He asked what I was talking about, and I told him I was breaking up with him because he wanted kids and I didn't, that there was no point in us staying together anymore due to the fact of him wanting kids and I not wanting them. Thankfully we do not live together, so there's no need to find new accommodations, and I've returned his key. He's been texting constantly begging for another chance and saying he'd rather have me than have kids. I don't want to run the risk of either 1, him tampering with my birth control, or 2, resenting me for him not having kids. I feel like I'm an ass because until this, we had a great relationship and were overall pretty happy. Our friends and families were divided, saying that since he changed his mind, maybe I will too. I don't believe I will, as I've never wanted kids since I was a child. So AIT. Stories number 30. Since there's already a post about the Christian response to the tragedy in LA, here's the Muslim response to it. While I detest Christianity as much as anyone else in this sub, I feel that Christianity gets too much flack while Islam is largely ignored and is arguably worse. Here are some responses from Muslims on FB regarding the horror scenario in LA right now. This is some of what we did for children's in Gaza. Ella looked like Jabalia, you reap what you saw. Los Angeles now looks like Gaza. America deserves. Remember Gaza. And so many other similar comments from followers of the religion of peace. This should be a reminder to everyone that even peaceful Muslims revel in suffering and hardships of Westerners, and that while the fires in LA aren't a terrorist attack, if it was, they'd 100% condone and support it. Not all Muslims are terrorists, but most terrorists are Muslims, and most Muslims support those terrorists. Religion doesn't give people better morals than those who are non-religious. Oftentimes it does the exact opposite.